Marcus Bennett was just a father that evening, not the powerful businessman the world knew him to be. He wanted nothing more than to spend a quiet dinner with his wife Emily and their 8-year-old son Jordan. It had been a long week, and tonight was supposed to be simple, just laughter, warm food, and family time. But no one in that busy, elegant restaurant could have predicted how one waiter's cruel arrogance would ignite a moment they would never forget. The restaurant was alive with laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of casual conversations. In the middle of it all, Marcus sat with his family at a corner table, his broad frame relaxed, his deep voice soft as he helped Jordan choose from the kids' menu. Emily smiled across the table, her brown eyes warm and tired. Then Derek arrived. A young waiter in his 20s, Derek wore a smile that never reached his eyes. He approached with an almost mocking cheerfulness, leaning too far over the table. "Evening," Derek said with a fake brightness, glancing briefly at Marcus's simple but well-worn shirt. "Water for you, huh? Guess that's about all you can afford here, right?" Before Marcus could respond, Derek tipped a full glass of ice water straight onto Marcus's chest. The freezing water soaked through his shirt, splashed across Emily's lap, and trickled onto Jordan's little jacket. The shock was instant. Emily gasped, clutching her napkin to try and dry her husband's shirt. Jordan froze, his lower lip trembling, unsure if he'd done something wrong to deserve such treatment. The restaurant went silent for a second, the kind of silence that comes before gossip explodes. And then it happened. Whispers, small snickers, and even a few chuckles from the tables around them. People stared, some with pity, others with cruel amusement. A few guests pulled out their phones, eager to capture the funny moment, completely unaware of the storm that was quietly brewing. Derek smirked, holding up the empty glass like a trophy. "We don't serve charity cases here," he said with a cruel grin, his tone dripping with superiority. Emily's hand trembled as she dabbed at her dress, her face flushed with embarrassment. She wanted to speak, to defend her family, but the words wouldn't come. Jordan's small shoulders shook as he stared down at the floor, feeling the weight of the laughter pressing on him. No one moved to help. No one said a word. Marcus, however, did not react. He did not shout. He didn't even glare at Derek. He simply sat there, his powerful silence speaking louder than anything. His dark eyes, deep and steady, scanned the room, not with anger, but with something far stronger, something controlled. Slowly, Marcus reached into his pocket and took out a small, worn photograph. It was of his family, Emily, radiant with her bright smile, and Jordan, grinning in his tiny white chef's jacket from a school cooking project. Marcus placed the photo face down on the table, his fingers resting on it as if it were a shield, grounding him in the moment. At the bar, the restaurant manager froze mid-step, her gaze fixed on Marcus, and in an instant, recognition spread across her face like a wave of fear. Her breath caught. She knew who this man was. Derek, oblivious, continued his mockery. "Tables like yours don't last long here," he chuckled as he turned to walk away. Marcus calmly picked up the photo and wiped it dry with his sleeve. His jaw tightened, the muscle twitching under his skin. But his voice, when it came, was low and calm. "This isn't over," he whispered, not to anyone else, but to himself. He stood up, water dripping from his shirt, and extended his hand to Emily. She hesitated, searching his face, but saw no anger, just a quiet resolve. He adjusted Jordan's jacket gently, whispering, "It's okay, buddy. We're leaving now." As they walked toward the door, memories flooded Marcus's mind. Years ago, he had been treated exactly like this. He had been a young, broke cook, washing dishes in a restaurant that smelled like old grease and burnt coffee. He still remembered the day a manager told him, "You'll never own anything in your life, kid. People like you stay in the kitchen where they belong." But Marcus had proved them all wrong. Through sleepless nights, burned hands, and endless work, he built his own empire. One restaurant, then 3, then a chain of fine dining establishments that now carried his name. The clacking of heels broke his thoughts. The restaurant manager rushed after them, her face pale with panic. "Mr. Bennett," she stammered, her voice trembling, I didn't realize." Marcus turned slowly, his gaze like ice. "You hired Derek, didn't you?" His voice wasn't raised, but it was sharp enough to slice through the whispering crowd. The manager dropped her gaze. She couldn't even form an excuse. Guests began murmuring louder now, some realizing that something was wrong. A few people lowered their phones, suddenly embarrassed. Derek approached, still clueless, rolling his eyes. "What's the big deal? If they don't like it here, they can go to some cheap diner," he scoffed. Marcus reached into his pocket again, this time pulling out his sleek black wallet. From it, he withdrew a single elegant business card. Without saying a word, he walked to the center of the restaurant. Every head turned. He placed the card on the nearest table. The gold-embossed letters glimmered under the chandelier. Marcus Bennett, founder and CEO, Bennett Dining Group. The reaction was immediate. A wave of gasps rippled through the room. The manager's face turned crimson. Derek's smug grin collapsed into horror as his knees seemed to weaken. Marcus's voice filled the room. "I own this restaurant," he said, his tone firm and measured. "I own the one across town, and 5 more, each built from nothing but hard work and respect for every single customer." Derek stumbled backward, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Marcus turned his gaze on the manager. "I'm not here to fire anyone," he said, his voice carrying the weight of leadership. "But I expect immediate mandatory training for your entire staff, anti-discrimination, ethics, basic human respect, starting now." The manager nodded frantically, whispering apologies. Derek looked as if he might faint. Marcus turned to Emily and Jordan. He fixed Jordan's jacket once more, his hand gentle and protective. "We're done here," he said softly. As he reached the door, Marcus paused. He turned back, his eyes sweeping across the silent, ashamed faces of the diners. "Respect isn't something you hand out like menus," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "Respect is earned through the way you treat people. Every person who walks through these doors deserves it." And with that, he left. The restaurant remained frozen in silence, the weight of the moment hanging heavy in the air. Some diners quietly set down their phones, ashamed of what they had been filming. A few even whispered to each other, realizing they had just witnessed something profound. Marcus taught everyone that night a lesson that went far beyond business or status. True strength doesn't come from shouting, from anger, or from revenge. True strength is quiet, steady, and unshakable. Marcus didn't seek vengeance. He sought accountability. He reminded everyone that dignity is not a luxury. It is a right. Marcus walked away that night not as a CEO flaunting his power, but as a father, teaching his son the most important lesson of all. Respect is not demanded, it is demonstrated.